The tragic news that Nick Mangold, the Jets' all-time great center, passing away at the untimely age of 41 years old. Once again, Nick Mangold passing away at just 41 years old. Jets Chairman Woody Johnson released the following statement today. We mourn the heartbreaking loss of one of the greatest to ever wear the green and white, Nick Mangold. Nick was more than a legendary center. He was the heartbeat of our offensive line for a decade and a beloved teammate whose leadership and toughness defined an era of Jets football. Off the field, Nick's wit, warmth, and unwavering loyalty made him a cherished member of our extended Jets family. On behalf of the entire Johnson family and the New York Jets organization, we offer our sincerest condolences to Jenny and their 4 children, Matthew, Eloise, Thomas, and Charlotte, as well as to Nick's extended family, friends, and all who loved him. Nick Mangold will be forever a Jet, and that is certainly true. And, obviously, for Jets fans, he was a joy to watch, a joy to listen to, but like you saw in the statement right there, a husband, a father to 4 young children, and a friend to a couple of the guys that are sitting on this set today, and Bart, Scott, and Willie Colon. And Willie, I just want to start with you. You had a chance to speak to Nick last week. You were his teammate and his fellow offensive lineman. Your initial reaction?
Sorry.
Take your time, bro.
Yeah. Sorry.
You don't have to apologize for nothing.
Yeah. It's hard, man. I talked to him. I'm sorry, Gibbs.
You want us to go to Bart?
Come to me.
Bart. Go ahead, Bart.
It's loss for words is really what my initial reaction is when Willie called me this morning and said that we had lost Nick. I said, what do you mean we lost Nick? We had just got the news and we were so hopeful that it was a plan in place that, we were going to find a way to make sure that we figure it out. And, these are one of those things where you just suspect it to go a different way. I was anticipating some type of, organ drive or something like that, and the story ends with, happy ending, and we all can go on and Nick can be the loving father, teammate, and friend. I passionately called him Fat Thor. He was a buddy of mine. We continued to work. We were a joy. We were like vinegar and water when it came to practice and how we behaved, and just was a joy to have. We both two Midwest guys, right? And he was like the thorn in my side. And, as I'm, screaming stuff at Sanchez, just remember at practice, us just having fun, going back and forth, and, his little corny, off-witted jokes and sarcasm. And, it doesn't feel real. It doesn't feel real, and it still doesn't feel real. And my heart just goes out for his children and his wife and his family. I mean, that was his world, and he was their world, and he was our world, right? He was bigger than life, right? The big beard, the big personality, the funniness, the comedic timing, and he'll be missed, and I still can't believe it, and it still hasn't soaked in yet. And, I miss my friend. We were able to work with each other over at the Jets facility. We would break down film and we have our jokes, and, our off, air conversations was funnier than the on air. And, EA over there would have to kind of bring us back. Sanchez did a podcast with him. He was still active in the community. He was still active. I filled in for him for a couple of things. People were accustomed to seeing him around the games. He was, in the Ring of Honor, and it's not supposed to end this way. And it's just a reminder, as I sit here next to Willie and I see Willie and the relationship that we have, how important it is for us to share our feelings with each other, because no man knows the time or the day, right? So you have to live every day like it's your last, because it could be. And make sure that the ones that you love, you remind them of how much you love them as teammates. It's only so many people that can relate to what we go through and what life is like for us. And, we're a fraternity, and it's big. And, too often we've lost so many, whether it's Doug Martin, whether it's Arthur Jones the week before, Jacoby Jones. We're human. I think this shows the human side of us as well. But too often we're looked at as like superheroes, but we're very human. And, this is a sad day for Jets Nation, and especially for all those who knew and loved Nick Mangold.
Yeah, it's thank you guys. It's I found the news out this morning. It broke me because I literally talked to him last week, and I got the Nick I wanted to hear. He was in good spirits. He was positive. He was positive because they had a plan. He felt like the family was in good position from a standpoint that they were going to get through this and they won't find a way. Nick meant a lot to me because when I got to the Jets, man, I was I was a battered ball player, from an injury standpoint. And I remember meeting him in the weight room, and he was like, "Hey, man, welcome aboard." And I had got validated from Alan Faneca. He was an ex-Steeler like myself who played on the Jets, had a great career. He was like, "Red told me a lot about you. You're in good company." And for a guy like him, you got to understand he was the face of the Jets. He was the captain, and he made room for a guy like me. I came with a battle-tested history in the Super Bowl and multiple playoff wins, and our egos never got in the way. And he was like, "Listen, we need all hands on deck." And he allowed me into that room to not only be a leader, but somebody who had a voice. And when I got the nod from Rex Ryan, to come to New York and play, I didn't just want to play for the Jets. I wanted to play with Nick Mangold. I wanted to play besides the Brickashaw Ferguson because we were all in the same draft class. We all got drafted in 06 together, so we had that kinship. And the thing about an offensive lineman, man, we take all the arrows. We take everything that comes with the dirty work. That's part of our creed. But what gets us through it is the fact that we're doing it together. If those who knew about my career as a Jet, I was injury prone, and I had a lot of injuries, and there's a lot of days I was going on that field in one leg, and I could look to 7-4, he's like, "I got you." And there was times where emotionally I was a wreck, and he always had my back. So I love you, Nick.
Yeah. Well, we love you guys. We love you, Bart. We love you, Willie.